focusing on anti-money laundering efforts. So we've been at the anti-money laundering business for almost 30 years now. Across that period, money laundering has continued to grow. It's not declining. We are not at the point where there is a downturn in the growing amount of money, laundered money around the world. So we're not succeeding yet.
That's crazy, right?
It's crazy to me.
It's very sad. What do you say? That hurts the poorest, and benefits the richest, right?
That's exactly right. And have you got a copy of my book?
No.
I'll give you a copy.
Okay, great.
And that's basically what I talk about, is the impact on the developing countries.
And when you look now in the U.S., even if there's no illegal transaction, there's still that thing that the 1% gets richer because they own important stuff that gets more wealth automatically. Money makes money. Mm-hmm. So the middle class and the poor people, even if it's not illegal, they get poorer and poorer, and those up there, they get legally, on a legal way.
That's exactly correct.
But that's also a problem, right? Even if you don't...
Globally, it is estimated that in this year, 2016, two lines will finally cross. The line representing the wealth of the richest 1% of the world, and the line representing the wealth of the rest of the 99% of the world. The richest 1% will have more wealth than the remaining 99%. This is not a stable world. This can't continue this way.
Yeah.
And of course, for the foreseeable future, it will continue to separate the rich from the poor. We're a long way from getting to the point that we're changing that reality.
Yeah. So is there some...
How'd you get to know about GFI's work at all?
I was reading a lot about Panama Papers, and you were mentioned several times. In the New York Times you were mentioned. I think I saw something in Washington Post.
Yeah,
you were mentioned. I think journalists like you for quotes, and what is great for you. And I thought that's interesting. And I looked your website and I liked it a lot because it was so... and then your resume and everything. Yeah, it's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I have to go off and give a talk. But you wanted to talk with Tom Cardamone also?
Sure. Yeah.
Tom was the first person that I asked to join me in this new venture that I had established. And one of the early conversations that we had was, what do we call this stuff? We can't call it dirty money, as I had in my book, because if we call it dirty money, that's going to make people run away from the subject matter. They're not going to want to address that. It makes people cringe, you know. So what do we call it? And we literally sat there and decided, after considering a lot of alternatives, decided to call it illicit financial flows. Illicit is a little bit weaker word than illegal. So it's a little more encompassing as to what we're talking about, including the moral element. Financial makes it clear that we're talking about the money, not the drugs or the human beings or the ivory tusk or what have you. And flows is the most important word because it makes it clear that we're talking about money that is generated in one place, goes through another place, ends up in another place. So we decided to call it illicit financial flows. And it took us a lot of years to get that into use by governments and institutions. But just in this past year, we've gotten it into 3 global documents that determine how the world is going to work for the next 15 years. So
that's great.
Yeah.
That's good.
But the point of it is we had to figure out what language will help make the point that we're trying to make. If we were still talking about dirty money, this issue would not be on the table.
No?
No.
But But people like to read things like that, right? Like your book title sells it better.
But leaders don't want to.
No?
Leaders don't want to deal with that. Your sophisticated Treasury Department official, or
They don't want to use dirty words.
they don't want to
yeah.
use those words. They want to talk about something that's a little more sophisticated sounding than that. So we call it illicit financial flows, and that has worked.
Yeah. And how easy is it to get a meeting with a senator or secretary of state or so? If you want to talk to them, is it easy for you, or is it like they don't meet directly? You have an assistant of an assistant of what?
The latter is more true. But I have met with a number of heads of state. And lots of central bank governors and finance ministers and so forth all over the world. Met with Angela Merkel a couple of years ago. Met with a lot of African heads of state. I worked with former president of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, all over the United States. In fact, I'm leaving on Saturday to join him in Europe. So it depends on the part of the world.
And Merkel, how was the meeting? Did she follow up on something, or did she react later on? Or
she was gathering opinions from a handful of us before she went to I think it was a G20. It may have been a G8. No, it was a G20 conference. And she just wanted to get our views on what should be brought to the table and so forth.
Some
she
feedback?
was very good.
Yeah. Was there some feedback later on, or?
I don't think a whole lot, but Merkel has been fairly good on our subject matter. So
yeah, she's good with the subject.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I've got to go.
All
Have
right.
you got your card?
Oh yeah, somewhere. Let me see.
And that's fine.
Thank you. Do you know Axel Springer?
Yes. You're normally based in New York, aren't
Yes,
you?
I'm based there.
Mhm.
I'm a Wall Street correspondent.
You're Austrian by birth?
No, German.
German?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've been to Germany a lot of times.
Where did you go?
Bonn, Frankfurt, Berlin, and so forth, calling on government officials. One of the members of our board of directors is German by nationality, original. He's now U.S. citizen.
What is-
Thomas Pogge.
Mhm.
And he and I have been to Germany together a good many times. Okay, Ted.
Okay,
I gotta run.
great.